Hello and welcome to the Mr. All In podcast. As always, my name is Jacob Staten, and as always, I'm joined by JJ Armstrong. JJ, how are you?
I should be very good because we just got a point away from Brighton. We are recording this directly after the final whistle. A few pints deep. Mate. Few pints deep. But I can't say I'm fantastic. It was difficult. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, mate. Yeah. I'm thrilled to bits on the back of a hard-earned point away from home. So, but before we start there, we need to start with what you're sipping back on, JJ.
I'm sipping back on a Stella.
Nelson Mandela.
A Stella. And a Stella. And that's it. What about you?
I've just got myself a bottle of Guinness Original.
Woof. Get it down, you boy.
Woof. So yeah, we'll start with Wolverhampton Wanderers away. I think first half we've been, probably as bad as we have been this season. Didn't really offer much going forwards or much fighting, that kind of thing. But so there's not too much to dwell on really in the first half. But the second half we come out. I think we start off a bit better. They get a penalty, which for me is never a penalty in a million years. He's gone to block the ball and his body's turned away from it. I'm sick of raging about that penalty. I kind of saw it and then just went, well, that's obviously not going to be a penalty, and went to the kitchen to do something. I came back and the geezer's gone to the look at the video, and it's just, what I mean. And that whole thing of as soon as he gets sent to look at the monitor, it's going to be given is getting a bit painful. But yeah, it's never a penalty in a million years for me. Neves, really good penalty taker, takes a really good penalty. Henderson, again, fine margins, so close to getting it. And then I think I don't want to say the word dominate, but I think we play really well in the second half, particularly after their penalty goes in. And we're the team in the ascendancy. We win a penalty that was more of a penalty than theirs, but I don't think we get if theirs isn't given. I thought they were originally looking at for a handball by Adama Traore, and it almost feels like they saw the shirt pull on Yates afterwards, and so we got that. It's not a great penalty from Brennan Johnson, but it's also not the worst one I've ever seen in the world, and the keeper had to save it. So, and then we just couldn't press home any of that dominance kind of thing towards the end of the second half. So a bit of an odd game, but I personally didn't feel that bad after it. JJ, how about you? So
I actually went to the game. Very lucky that Mike Lee, our dear friend and dear listener of the podcast, took me as a +1. So thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate it. Absolute legend, and treated me very well throughout the day. I'll tell you what, being in the disabled spot is like VIP. It was like having a box. It was unbelievable. The disabled toilets, honestly, if there was a kitchenette in there, I won't be surprised. So thank you, Mike. It was incredible. The game itself, I'll be honest, I was disappointed. I don't know if it's any different being there to watching it and not having an overall view, but we just felt so spineless again. We felt disappointing. Didn't feel like there's any substance to us. Brennan Johnson didn't run at people. He just felt a bit lacking. Both teams felt rubbish to me. And the fact that the main opportunity for both teams to score came from penalties, through nonsensical VAR decisions, I think screams a lot to me. When it came to Neves taking a penalty, I thought Henderson saves this just because I've become accustomed to it. When it came to Johnson taking the penalty, I thought Johnson scores this because he needs it for his confidence. So it was one of them where you look back and you think, if he just got his fingertip to it because he was very close, or if Johnson just put it slightly right to the keeper, then it's a completely different game. If Johnson scores his penalty, then I think, in my opinion, we go on to win that game. Because we were looking the better team, but the main thing and the main problem to me is that we didn't actually look like scoring. So I was quite disappointed. It just didn't feel like we had any real substance to what we did. The atmosphere as well being there, I think it's difficult to get a good atmosphere in a ground like the Molineux.
Because you're at the side of you're not behind a goal, are you?
You're at the side,
right.
so you're not all making a wall of noise. It just feels like you're so disconnected from the other side of the away fans. So the atmosphere felt a bit flat, but I don't know if that's the case. I think Wolves home fans would probably disagree. One observation for me is that Wolves have safe standing and everyone was sat down. Make that make sense. But yeah, I was just a bit disappointed. It felt like another game where it was another team like Villa, like Leicester, that can't score, that aren't playing well, that we should be playing well against and maybe scoring against. And once again, didn't happen.
Yeah. What was your thoughts on our penalty, on the winning of it?
When I was watching it there, I didn't really know. It's hard to tell what's happening there because your sort of perception of where the ball is difficult. When I was watching it back, I was surprised to see that I thought they were looking at it for a handball and then they gave it for a shove instead. So it was quite confusing. Honestly, I think both penalties were a little bit soft. And I agree with your point that if theirs hadn't been given, I don't think ours would. I think there was a better penalty shout that wasn't given. I might be wrong in saying that, but I'm almost sure there was a penalty shout that should have been given that was stronger than the other two. But it was just a weird game. Both teams just didn't feel very good to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the penalty again, it's one of those. I think it was the 2018 World Cup where they kept giving penalties for those kind of infringements at corners, and I thought that you do that for a season, and that kind of we've all played football matches where there's always some clown of a centre back trying to pull your shirt off your back. That kind of thing dies out on the televised game anyway, doesn't it? If every time there's a corner you get a foul given for it, so just confusing for me after that World Cup that they stopped doing it outside the World Cup. Because it is a foul, but everybody does it at every single corner, and we're not going to have 300 penalties in a game, are we? So you just like I said, I think if the Wolves penalty isn't given, we don't get that. So
there's
felt like a draw would have been fair.
I think a draw would have been fair, definitely. And if I had to be gun to the head, sort of picking a winner, I think Forest maybe edged it. But I don't think we deserved 3 points. I think a point was fair for both teams. Both teams weren't great. But that's football, isn't it? We didn't win, and that's it. I think a few things that I need to point out about the Wolves game is when I was on the train in the morning, sinking a beer at 10 a.m, refreshing Twitter and seeing Forest tweet playtime with Emmanuel Dennis playing with Wolves.
Poor taste, that.
I thought I screenshotted it and immediately sent it to a few people saying, well, I know what's going to happen today. This is written in the stars. Really, really terrible, poor decision. And we've been mocked for it and we deserve to be mocked for it. And the worst part is, Jacob, what's the worst part of the whole thing?
What? I didn't even realise they were Wolves.
No, I don't know. That's just bad. That's bad creative.
I saw it and I thought, why have they posted a picture of Dennis with his dogs?
That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was we deleted it. We didn't even own it. We deleted it. Yeah, what's the point of even doing it if we're just going to delete it?
Own it.
Own it. Embarrassing.
A dear friend of the podcast quite rightly pointed out that all it would have taken was the Homer Simpson into the hedge emoji and it all would have been forgiven.
Anything. Just keep it up. Wolves admin had a tap in there. Embarrassing us, and Ruben Neves posted something. I mean, come on, that was going to happen. That was embarrassing. And then the only other thing was, I watched the whole game before Adama Traore was taken off and saw him bullying Toffolo, him getting so much space, creating chances. They never looked like actually scoring, but we didn't do anything about it. Toffolo looked out of his depth. I think he put anyone there in our squad at the moment, I think they'll be out of their depth, but we just didn't feel like we reacted to the actual threats that they had. So not a good game. thank you, Mike, for taking me. I really appreciate it. It was a good day out. Had a really good laugh and I enjoy it. But unfortunately, the performance on the pitch didn't match it.
Proper stadium as well, isn't it, Molyneux?
I liked it. It was good. Yeah, I would love Forest to implement a safe standing thing like they have. The facilities felt really good. They felt proper. They had a bit of pyro on the side. Some people might call tin pot, but it was decent. A good stadium.
Yeah. Cool. Which moves us into tonight's game. We're recording this on Tuesday, the 18th of October, which was Brighton away. Long journey for a Tuesday night. So if you've been to that game, huge shout out to you. I know it can't be easy.
Completely huge shout out to anybody that made that journey. Sang that loud despite that performance. After watching any of it, I can't. It's unbelievable that atmosphere came from that performance. Full credit to any Forest fan that went tonight and sang that loud after watching that.
Well, whilst I completely agree with you regarding the first half, which, you know, we were extremely lucky to get out of at 0-0, in my opinion. Pardon me. And the second half, though, you know, although it was still very much kind of one-way traffic from Brighton, I thought we defended much better. Don't think they really looked like scoring in the second half. We started to become a bit of a threat on the counter-attack. Although he made a really bad pass with his initial first bit of touch. Biancon came on and looked all right. Nice to see Joe Worrell back on the pitch. I know you're probably going to want to bring up the lack of a striker for most of the game. But I've seen, Brennan Johnson for me can be a striker, and he was a striker tonight, and he put himself about without really playing well, if you know what I mean. It's a really valuable point and a real nice dose of reality of we are going to have these games against these teams that are, if Brighton won, this would have been their best start ever in the top flight. So, maybe a bit of perspective on who we're playing. And yeah, again, I'm not saying we played well, but to come out of there with a point, we had to have done at least something, a little bit of something right.
Sure. I'd love to agree that we did something right, but to be completely honest with you, I just don't think we did. I think
we didn't concede. That's got to be something right.
Sure. We were so lucky. I feel so much empathy for Brighton fans tonight after watching that and watching their team walk away from that game without winning is mental. They were by far the better team, and Forest were absolutely dog shit.
I know you compared it to Huddersfield at home, didn't you, last season?
Yeah.
Which is the game that you still talk about being one of the best games we've ever played.
Flip it around. Forest were dominant. Somehow lost that game, even though we were quite clearly the better team. I feel that's the same case for Brighton tonight, and I feel sort of embarrassed, really, to sort of be on the receiving end of it. I've got a load of people messaging me because it's on Prime. You've got more eyes on it. I've had people messaging me saying Forest aren't very good, are they? And it just does feel a bit embarrassing. I think we got it wrong from the lineup. I think
not the midfield.
Not in the midfield. That's true. I think the front three, we've already seen that doesn't work. A few podcast episodes ago, I said that front three, we've done it, we've experimented, it doesn't work. We need to, Dennis came in last weekend and he looked good. The weekend before he scored, he looked good. He looked a bit electric. Brennan Johnson has been a bit of a ghost recently. He missed the penalty on Saturday. Somehow dropping Dennis and starting Johnson doesn't make any sense to me. Lingard, Johnson and Gibbs-White together just doesn't work at all for me. I'll just caveat that with Johnson. There's been the sort of accusation that he doesn't try recently. I can't say that he didn't try tonight. Yeah. He did. He didn't do anything with it, but he did try and he did run.
Yeah.
Lingard, I forgot, was on the pitch for most of the game. I think Lingard had no impact at all. The midfield of Yates, Freuler and Mangala, I think that you can lock that in. I think that's done. Isn't it? That's done. He could possibly swap Yates for O'Brien, But I think, even though O'Brien had such a good start, at the moment, I think Ryan Yates is bleeding for that shirt, quite literally, because he got kicked in the face, and I won't drop him. I think Ryan Yates has been a credit to this side.
I think second half as well, when he started to get forward a bit more, back to kind of what made him a success at the end, when Cooper came in last season of getting box to box.
Yes.
I think as mentioned in our group chat earlier around, he was getting starting to get a bit too Robbie Savage of kicking people and arguing, and that was his whole game again, which it was before. Whereas when Cooper first came in, he was getting box to box and driving us forward and moving the ball on quickly and following it, getting himself up the pitch. So nice to see him start to do that again towards the second half of the second half.
Fully agree. I think Ryan Yates has been a credit. I think he clearly gives a shit about the shirt, which is what we need at the minute.
Yeah.
We always say that he proves us wrong and he puts in a good shift, and the last few games, I can't argue with it. So fair enough, Ryan Yates.
Freuler, he was injured at the start of the season as well, wasn't he?
He was. Remo Freuler needs to keep his spot, I think, because yes, there's slight moments where he hasn't quite got it, but you can see that if he holds his position, he is going to conduct everything. He's unbelievable. Mangala, obviously his fitness is not quite there, so that's why he only played 60 minutes. But the Mangala Freuler Yates combination, I think for me, is the one. I think that's one positioning that we've got that can be locked in.
Yep.
Defense. I
think McKenna's looked back to his old best, I think.
Agree again. McKenna, that's 1 out of 4 that I can lock in there. I thought
Niakate would be another one, wouldn't he?
Niakate would be, but he's not here. Aurier tonight was awful. What did you say before, Jacob? You said he looked like he was a weird player.
Yeah. He just sometimes he does something, you think, oh, and then you spend the other 85 minutes thinking, as this clown of a. Well, you start thinking, I could maybe make it still at the age of 31 and a giant fat man.
There was, I don't know what game it was. There's a few games ago on the podcast I said, I really didn't want Aurier, but he played well tonight, or whatever that game was. I'll take him. He did all right. But tonight, I think he was awful. Nico Williams, a few episodes in, I said, Jed Spence, who? Because I was convinced that Nico Williams was so much better. Tonight, he didn't show that.
I thought he was all right defensively, but he's not. Those first couple of games of the season where he would kind of get over the halfway line, cut more into the midfield, and stop playing balls in from that kind of situation. Yeah. I mean, he's stopped doing that, and we've really lost something with the fullbacks this season for me. Yeah,
he feels like a different player from those first few games, particularly West Ham and Spurs at home. I remember, obviously, we were both at the City Ground, and we thought, fucking up, this guy's exciting. Like he got the crowd excited. He was doing stuff, but recently, last 2 games, he's not quite done that.
No.
Steve Cook, for me, good backup player, good option off the bench, but come on, why is he still starting for me?
I think the point's been made now, hasn't it, type thing.
It's been done. I know why we say keep the back four constant to get them to bed in, but if you're swapping your fullbacks around anyway, what does it matter? Worrell came on, good to see him in a Forest shirt again, like I say. I had questions about him, but I'd rather see him over Cook.
Yeah, I understand putting Cook in for Worrell to take him out of the spotlight, but Cook has categorically been, he's been worse than what Worrell was, and for a longer time. So put Worrell back in now, or Willy Bolly, or I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Bardet.
Loic Bardet? I don't know.
Loic Bardet. So he's another player that doesn't exist like Jonathan Panzo. So. Yeah,
well, he was actually on the bench last week. He seems to have disappeared again, but he did actually show on the bench Bardet last week. So who knows what's going on there? But I think the frustrating thing for me is, I don't know what it is. I think it's abandoning our system completely and crumbling under pressure, going for 4-3-3. I know you said, I think we have to put up with this formation to sort of endure a few games. Yeah. And I mean, we came away with a point tonight, so it's worked, but it's not nice to watch when you take into account Forest last season and how exciting and nice that was to watch attacking football, it's frustrating to watch us play how we are now. But also, I think the more frustrating thing is, most fans can see it, is how close we are to a good 11. I think you make 2 or 3 changes in that, and I think you've got a pretty strong 11 there.
Yeah.
I think absolutely. For me, it's Cook for Worrell and then Niakate when he comes in. At the moment, it's Johnson for Dennis, and then fullbacks Williams and Toffolo, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go Dennis for Lingard and put Johnson on the wing. I'm still happy to give Johnson enough. He's got more chit in the bank from me. I just it's interesting. It's interesting to watch the way that it's all unfurling, because I think Steve Cooper would like to have stuck with his back 3, but he needs. He's got McKenna, who's Mr. Consistent. He had Niakate, looked raw. He's actually only played 60 minutes of a game, hasn't he, against Spurs? But in pre-season, that he looked really good. It was clear that he was going to play a huge part this season. Plus, your captain, that's a strong back 3. All of a sudden, you take the Rolls Royce out and you put Steve Cook back in, and then Joe Worrell has a bit of a wobble because he's never played the Premier League. That back 3 crumbles to bits especially when it's such a core. You're playing 3; it's such a core of the team. So I feel a bit sorry for Cooper there. But it's going to be interesting to see what he does when Niakate does come back. And I'm interested to see who plays with McKenna on Saturday, which is a nice segue into what we're doing on Saturday, JJ.
I was still ready to moan more about the game tonight, but it's probably best to move me off. We are both going, alongside my mother, to the Liverpool game on Saturday at City Ground. At the infamous City Ground.
We're going to do another match day vlog, which will actually start on Friday, because I'm going to drive up and pick JJ up, aren't I, JJ? On Friday night. Yeah, so the vlog will start then. And we're going to we'll be in Poets before the game. You better believe it. For anyone listening who needs to know this, Poets will be open at 9 a.m. and they're serving bacon and sausage sandwiches and cobs and things. So we're not sponsored by them, but I goddamn wish we were, JJ, don't you?
Poets Corner, get in touch. Yes, please.
Get in touch. There you go. It's going to be another huge game, isn't it? It's mad to think that we were here. I mean, it's this year still, isn't it? But in the FA Cup against Liverpool, and one of the best atmospheres ever I've ever experienced at the City Ground. So it will absolutely be buzzing again. Obviously, different circumstances. I've got to remain optimistic and hope we get something out of the game. It's a real tough task. They've just come into form. They put Rangers to the sword, didn't they, in Champions League, and kind of had a really pick back up to their usual high standards against City on Sunday. So it'll be a hard game. That's absolutely sure. Remaining optimistic, I think I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, JJ.
Interesting. I actually think we're going to play a lot better on Saturday. I think when the previous games of West Ham and Spurs at the City Ground, the atmosphere was ridiculous, and I think that really made a difference for the crowd, and it impacted on the players. I think your teams like Bournemouth, Fulham and Villa, I think quite rightly, are a bit more boring. So I think the atmosphere has been a little bit weaker in comparison. So the fact that it's a daytime game, sort of early afternoon against Liverpool at the City Ground in the Premier League, it's going to be a different atmosphere to what we've seen in the last few home games. I think it's going to be more akin to West Ham and Spurs games, and I think that's going to make a massive difference. The fact that we survived tonight against Brighton is massive. I think it should, I know the performance was awful, but it should give them at least a little bit more confidence that they can endure and weather storms. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see us get a point from the game. It has the makings of Liverpool completely dissecting us and completely smashing us. And if they do, I'm not mad because that squad should be sort of battering Forest as they are right now. But with the atmosphere that we've got or going to have, here's what it is. I think I looked at the Liverpool game a few weeks ago and thought that's a game that could sort of give us a bit of inspiration because Liverpool aren't great at the minute. So we could pick up a point or two. And then since then, they beat Rangers 7-1 and then beat Man City. So it feels like they're coming into form in just enough time to absolutely thrash us. But I think either way, the atmosphere is going to be incredible. I think everyone's going to expect to lose. But I just feel like we're going to at least see a better performance because of the atmosphere.
Yep.
I just wish it was 3 o'clock because then it'd be even better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. 12:30 is a 3 o'clock or a 5:30 would have been awesome, wouldn't it? But yeah, still going to be a great day. Still massively looking forward to it. It's going to be wonderful. Maybe we just have to take a shot of reality in Poets before we head to the ground. That's all.
A few shots of reality in the forms of pints of Stella Artois.
Absolutely. I suppose that's where we'll leave this week's episode. We'll be back after the Liverpool game, but before the Arsenal game, I imagine. So if you are listening for the first time, thank you very much for joining us. And if you've come back, we love you dearly. You Reds.